This is Juliana Jackson, and we are here for the special edition of Standard Deviation Podcast for the first season. I'm here in the nature in Bucharest, Romania. I wouldn't know exactly to tell you where I am. Ice Brătianu's house. There's actually a Romanian design week here happening today, so I'm just jacking the place. And I have a very special guest for this episode, and I'm here with Steen Rasmussen, the founder, data evangelist, data extraordinaire from YH Nordic, Denmark.
Juliana, a pleasure to be here with you.
So why are you doing in Romania, Steen?
So I've been here to attend MeasureCamp Bucharest edition, and it was a really cool thing. So spending a day with the community in Romania and in analytics. So a lot of excitement, really, in the sense that good feedback and good talks.
I think I never asked you this question before. Tell me, how did you get in the measurement and analytics world? Because I don't think you ever told that story.
No, so well, originally I have a degree in corporate communications. So when I started my career, I actually started it as an online copywriter. That was where I started. But you can't say online copywriting without saying usability, so I actually became probably my fanciest titles at that point, the head of usability excellence, head of usability center of excellence for the agency I was working in. And the reason why we were the center was because I had a student aide. So we were two people and everybody else was just one. But can't take anything from the title. Now for me, the usability was fine. I had one big challenge that somebody was the ambassador for the user when nobody was being the ambassador for the business. So that was kind of my thing in that. I was really frustrated saying that everybody was talking about the user experience, but nobody was talking about the business value. So for me, that was kind of the momentum I needed. I started talking about how to optimize. First thing I noticed was intranets. The company I was working for had the slowest intranet in the world, a Swedish agency called Adera at the time. So I actually went in and I did a calculation saying that if all the 800 people of the company were sitting, waiting 5 minutes a day on the intranet to load, that would mean basically thousands of hours being wasted waiting for this thing. Right? So that really turned into the commercial approach on analytics, saying that if you can measure it, you can change it, and you can have a business focus. So that was kind of my way into analytics, coming from content.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think I've been using this sentence a lot, saying my generation in the analytics community is a ragtag bunch of people who washed up on the shore randomly. We were just people who were in a place. It's a generation of people where it wasn't a career option because it didn't exist when we started.
It didn't, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, take Avinash, take Simo, take...
Tim Wilson, he was a technical writer.
Yeah, exactly. We all just ended up saying meaning in data, and I think meaning in sharing.
I love it. I think this is really awesome. Also, June Lee was a chemical engineer.
Yeah. Before
she got into this world. It makes me feel good in a way to know this because, like, as you know, I kind of have sort of the same attraction to data, and it's really interesting and makes me wonder, like, what do you think is the actual value that people get from data? Like, you were speaking about in your keynote yesterday, in the second keynote that you had, about context. Do you think people are aware of the context of that data should be used as much as they should be, or you think people just use this data-driven thing as an excuse to, do whatever the fuck they want in the end?
I think for a lot of people, and we have a tendency to look too much at our own data and too little about what happens on the outside. So very often, most stuff that will impact us will actually be something that is out of our control. There will be things happened in the surrounding. So like if we're sitting here saying we could have a lovely conversation, if it started raining it would be less lovely and it would be really out of our control.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Yeah, exactly. Or if the guy who was here a minute ago starts vacuuming again.
The leaves.
That would also impact the situation a lot.
Yeah.
And it would be maybe we could pay him to shut up, but we couldn't stop the rain. And it's kind of taking context into the situation that way and accepting, saying there are things that we have to accept that will impact the things, and because we have data doesn't necessarily mean that we control it.
Yeah.
So having this understanding of what was I can't even remember the specific wording, but the old saying about understanding what you can control and the decisions you control and accepting what you can't.
Yeah, exactly. Because you cannot change, what you can control.
No, and I think that is an important aspect, right? Because you need to be aware of it, saying that there are things that will impact this situation. There are things that we cannot control that will change the situation.
The mode that I have in the podcast is to talk about how we can find the right context to explain ourselves to ourselves, if that makes sense. And I always make this comparison, and I kind of took all the guests to this question because it's very important for me. And it's the question about averages and statistics. And you know very well when I did that, when I gave, because you corrected my English, when I gave that lecture for the Swedish students, I was telling them that we're so obsessed with averages and numbers, but we're not spending enough time understanding behaviors. Because I think the biggest problem in the analytics world, if we talk about work, but also in our life in general, is that we're focused so much on numbers, but we're not focused on the behaviors that much. For instance, I always give this example. I'm going to go and take an online test, a Myers-Briggs test, and they're going to tell me, you have an analytical mind, you can be a data analyst. And then I will take that information from that test because it's a reputable test, and I'm going to say, yes, I'm an analytics person. But however, they are taking my results and comparing them against 30,000 other people that come from different geographies, can come from different, backgrounds, different ages, sexes, whatever. But they are giving it to people as a definite. Like, how do you think that's correct for us to look at ourselves through the lenses of an average?
So I think in a lot of ways, our self-perception defines who we are. Two stories related to that. So one is the story, I don't know if you heard, the first time they decided to check out astrology. Is the personality in relation to the star signs. They went in and they asked the question, I think 1,000 people, and what star sign they were and what qualities what type of personality they were. And this first study, it was spot on. It was exactly everybody in these 1,000 people were spot on. They were just like their star sign said. That was amazing, except that somebody came after and say, okay, hang on, this is too good to be true. So where did they ask this question? And they asked it at an astrology convention. So it was all people who were already dedicated to their star sign. They knew what behaviors they were supposed to have. So that was self-enforcing, that they had learned that because they had this star sign, they were supposed to be this way. So they were
convinced.
Yeah, they redefined themselves.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think the parallel to that was they asked, I think it was at Harvard, they asked the students whether they were below average, on average, or above average, right? And 80% of the students claimed that they were above average. And of course, from a mathematical point, it cannot be true.
It can't.
But from a self-perception point,
anything can be true.
Anything can be true. And how would you like to have a self-perception saying, no, I'm below average? It will kind of be demotivational when it comes to ambitions. It will be demotivational when it comes to careers and what you want to do with your life.
First time this average, below average, and above average was created based on a population work. It was, I always talk about researching Quetelet, Adolphe Quetelet's work, or Quetelet for the French speaking. I don't want to mess up the name. He did this essay in the 18th century called L'Homme Moyen, the average man. And he was just trying to look at the average person, but only based on populations. Yeah. Like, it wasn't that evil. No. He was just trying to figure out, sizes for army, military, but like, it wasn't that evil what Quetelet did. But then, a few tens of years after, Francis Galton took his work and he basically put the basis of college education, where all these things like average, below average, and eminent came up for how kids should be. And then from that, Taylor, the guy that invented the manager and the plant work, took Galton's work and then created the way we work today. And I think because of those things that you mentioned earlier is why we're so ashamed to be considered under average or, below average. But I think it's the context, right? Again, is very important, because I could be below average at content writing. Yeah. But I could be above average at product marketing. Yeah. So I think, again, context is queen. all the time. So I wanted to ask you, do you think we are trying to put ourselves in boxes just because we want the world to understand us better? It was this evolutionary behavior thing I read about some time ago. I do read a lot of smart shit sometimes. But I was reading that one of our primary instincts as humans is to basically belong to a group and to be a part of the convictions of the group and the integrity of the group. So do you think we're taking those primal instincts in society and we're just trying to put ourselves in different boxes, maybe to help people understand us better or tell people to come in our boxes as well? Like, what's your thought on that?
I think it's the other way around. I think it's us putting us in boxes because it's easy, because it simplifies our lives that we are in boxes. So I can put on a role, I have a specific set of behavior that will simplify my life, because if I have to decide every time I have a choice which route I'm going to take in this thing, then it's going to be spending a lot of energy. One of my favorite books is the Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow.
I didn't read it,
Daniel
right?
Kahneman. And going in and having this saying that your brain has two modes. It's one that is autopilot, where it makes all the decisions for you, and the other that where you have to make the decisions yourself. And 80-90% of our lives are done on autopilot. And the only way we can behave on autopilot is by being in boxes, having rule sets, having ideas of who we are, having defined what is my behavior in this situation. Because his logic is that your brain is lazy. It will always choose. The thinking takes energy. To preserve energy, what can we do that is not thinking? Right? So what is the automatic approach? So I really think it's a good reflection, inspired by what you're just saying. The boxes that we're in, I think it's the reason why we have all these boxes now is because we have more options. If we go back a couple of generations, there wasn't any options in life. It was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do what my father did, and then I'm going to live in the same place where my parents did, and then marry the person I've known all my life, and blah, blah, blah. It's very simple. I don't have any choices. My boxes were already given. It's a really simple way to not live, not to decide anything, just accepting, saying, cool, this is it. And now we get so many options. And to avoid having to spend all that energy
to thinking,
to avoid thinking, we put ourselves in boxes.
How do you think that translates to the data analytics world? Like, you're a senior, let's say, you know what I mean, like you're a senior data analyst, and I was laughing about this a bit with Simo, because we're talking about, like you externalize your thought process to tools, for instance, because it's easier to believe what a tool shows you instead of questioning it and using critical thinking. So what's your thoughts?
It's same thing in the sense that I think that one of the mistakes I see is that when people talk about being data-driven, they see that it's data deciding for you, and that is avoiding thinking. And I think data-driven in my book is saying that data drives you to the things you need to decide about. Right? So you don't have to decide about everything. But what is the point? What are the influxes and the challenges in the data? What options are you facing with? Because I think when it comes to analytics, when you break it down, it generates more questions than it gives answers. Right? So it's being able to ask the right questions and then being able to probably get the right answers to that, or measure the impact so you're not making the same mistake or making the same wrong decision again and again.
And I think it's also, again, I'm going to say, probably I'll name this episode the context, but it's also like where in analytics world, like it's the context that you're in, because you can see people, you had a slide with the summit and you were showing that hill. And it reminded me of...
that hill was Mount Everest.
I'm not going to cut this. This is funny. What I'm saying is it was Mount Everest, It was the summit, but it reminded me, I'm taking this measurement marketing course from Mercer, very good course. And he was explaining something, it's more like a data ops course. So he was saying something that in the beginning you're in the cave, there you're on the, on the plains, and then you're on the summit, on the hill. And I think a lot of people are trying to take being in the cave, like where they don't know too much stuff, nothing is already, set in stone, there's no processes. They want to take the decisions that people on the summit are taking.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, when you're in this spot, you have to do more groundwork. Like when you're in this spot, it takes more groundwork and knowing where you are. And I think the more you get on that hill, and that hill doesn't mean necessarily you as a person, it means the company that you're in, because you can have a company that uses a set of tools that you have to work with as an analyst, even if you have different ideas. But it's that data maturity thing that you're talking about. And I feel like the more you're on the hill or on Mount Everest, the more you outsource your thought process, and you just, you don't like to have your point of view challenged. And I see this so much on social media. I see this so much on people that just, do this so much on autopilot every day, as you were talking about. I just feel like they don't like to have their points of view challenged anymore. And I feel like when you stop having your point of view challenged is when you stop growing, in my opinion.
I think there's two layers to that, because one is I like the symphonic maturity model that it starts with negative, and that's basically people being in the cave.
In the cave, yeah.
Yeah. And
I am in the cave.
But actually saying that you think you have a level of maturity that you haven't. Yeah. That actually you're not really anywhere where you can use the data, and then you probably come up to a level where
everyone is like the general population.
Yeah. But because you come out of the cave, you think you're really awesome.
Yeah.
But you're not even anywhere close to the summit yet. But you and I think you might be pushing the data too much there. And where I see we're going is probably having the data orchestration thing, that data is supporting and responding to you, so you will be making the active choices, but data will make stuff happen. Right? So I don't know if it makes sense.
No, it does. That's exactly what I wanted to sort of say. I think when you're out of the cave is great. Bravo. Here's a cookie. But I think you shouldn't race to go to the summit, because that journey there is the becoming journey, which is so much meaningful when you're starting to learn how to become better.
Actually, in relation to Mount Everest, and that analogy saying the route to Mount Everest isn't that long, right? But the idea is saying that you have to go through each base camp, and if you try to rush a base camp, then you die. It's really simple, right?
A lot of people died on trying to get to the top.
Yeah, because it is only like 72 kilometers, the route up there. Or it's not that it's 8 kilometers or something, but you actually walk the 72 kilometers to train and get up there.
I want to also cover something with you. This is a conversation that I'm having a lot in the podcast about the education system. So I'm sure Denmark has a different level of education. Again, the context thing. I'm sure Denmark is a bit different than Romania when it comes to the education system. However, globally, I feel like we're teaching kids, or like we're preparing kids for a future that doesn't exist anymore. Like we're preparing kids for the past because we're using the same curricula in school that was used for 50 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 30 years ago. The kids that are born today, like your son or my son, because they seem to be at the same age, I feel like they don't have the analog experience that we do. They are more digitally driven, digitally native, and all the kids that are being born right now are digitally native. So I want to ask you, how do you feel that the school system can keep up with the world and try to prepare our kids for the future? Because if you remember in the past, maybe when you and I, or Alexandra that's filming, we were in school, the teacher was the ultimate gatekeeper of information. And then it was the library. You had two options. Again, your options, a remark earlier. So you were waiting on the teacher to help you explore the world and open the world to you, and then you were going in the library with the list, try to read more on the subjects. But now, you can learn anything from the internet. Like I never thought when I was my son's age that I will get to, in my 30s and try to learn a programming language from the internet for free. So how do you think the school system is keeping up with educating our kids for the future?
I think it is something I've talked and touched upon before. So I feel that the challenge for the coming generations is that they need to continuously learn. And I think one of the things that I see, we at our age, we've gone through a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
So people just work Monday to Thursday and 30 hours and then have the 5th day off. And I think if I go back and if I should do it again, I would actually say the 5th day should be dedicated to training. Yeah. So because what's happening is that right now it's independent, but a lot of people are using the fifth day to learn, and I would rather have organized it from the beginning. Because the world is changing so fast, the skills we have, it really becomes redundant fast. And the options our parents had of having a lifelong career, being I'm the secretary for a doctor, yeah, sure. But in the future, there will be no doctors because that will be done by robots because it's much more efficient and fast. So the robot won't need a secretary. And so what is the career? So where will you go there? And since things are changing at a rapid speed, then being able to relearn and readjust and finding a new direction is becoming more and more critical. And I would actually flip it and say, I think when I look at kids today, I will divide them into what you call digital natives.
Yeah.
And put in as saying there's also a group I will call digital naives that have no idea what the hell is going on. That my generation, your generation, has this, we know there's a technical level going on behind things. There's a reflection, there's something, somebody's tracking us, somebody's using this information. Half the next generation know this. The other half doesn't give a shit. They have no idea. They would rather look at some influencer talking about something really redundant, ridiculous. Yeah. Instead of having the reflection about what is the layer behind the layer? Why are they doing this? Why is this person shamelessly promoting some product? Oh, it's because they really believe it. The future of that half of mankind would be redundant in the future, that they would bring no value to the equation, so they would basically they didn't have any skills that had any value for society. So having a future role is not the future. So talking about being average and mediocre and things, but seeing a future for my kids as being, well, yeah, congratulations, son, you're a really good consumer, career choice. Yeah. We will give you money so you can buy stuff, so you can keep the factories running and making shit happen, but you don't really have anything else to add.
That's crazy. I never thought of it like that, but you're right. We are consumers, all of us.
Yeah.
Was that movie, if you remember, Fight Club, and like we're all consumers, and it was Edward Norton that was looking to the IKEA catalog, and he was saying, I am on my new couch. I think it's becoming worse. I think we're all just consumers, but we have to, I think everything has become challenging.
I think that the challenge is also saying that if you look at work and production, so I know Adidas, they moved all their shoe production from China back to Germany.
Okay.
And then they did that. But what they told the German government was that, at least that's how the story goes, was that this would not create one single job in Germany because it would all be robots. So China got too expensive, they moved it all back to Germany because that was cheaper with logistics, and then they put in robots to make all the shoes.
Wow.
But the challenge is that as companies, if we see people only as a cost, what we're doing, and this is getting very philosophical, but we're basically also killing the markets, because at the end of the day, how many shoes do robots wear? Right? There needs to be somebody to buy the shoes.
Absolutely.
Right? So by automating and putting everything into automation, making data do all the thinking, AI and robots doing everything, who's going to buy all the stuff that we produce? So we will take people and we will give them like a basic salary just to make sure that the robots are busy.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought of it. Like, I didn't know about Adidas moving.
And I think they're just an example of that. You will, if you dig into it, you will find other companies doing the exact same thing.
It's just about, I told you this when we talked on the phone some time ago, that I feel like whatever we're doing right now to evolve as a society with the metaverse and the Web3s and the DeFi and whatever, it's just like to take our attentions as humans from our land, from our family, from our life. Because I feel like we're trying to get away so much from Earth, and we're just trying to exist in, all these luxurious virtual places, but like no one thinks about, I look at how many parents are not taking care of their kids or making sure their kids are good in school, or how many kids never played outside with a ball or kicked the ball, or it's like all the things that were normal Now they're not. Like they're becoming, old school, or how my son called me a boomer the other day. And I'm not even a boomer, but he called me one. So I get it. I think it's challenging as a human, but also in our world in marketing and digital analytics, I think it's becoming very challenging to be employed right now, in my opinion, because if you don't bring value, if you cannot produce, and if you're not constantly challenging yourself to learn, you won't be able to survive. Look at all these layoffs right now. I think it's insane, and I think it's only the beginning.
Yeah. I was in another podcast where we talked about Elon Musk said this, that he didn't believe that the virtual reality was something serious coming to stay. And it's so easy to say if you're the richest man in the world because you have all the options already.
Yeah.
But so my example there was saying that for a lot of people, being a battery in the matrix, just selling your body to produce power so you could tap into the matrix and live in another reality is actually not a bad career choice.
Steen, talking about challenges and insecurities, you were mentioning in your first keynote, you were talking about the insecure data analyst. Can you expand more on that for the people that weren't there to hear it?
It's not my original thinking. It's stolen from a professor from the University of Lund, where he had been looking at consultants in general and basically split them into two types, saying there was the career-oriented professional person going for a title, going for the next level, getting the promotion. And then there were unsecure specialists. That was a person working in some field where the key driver in that area was peer recognition. That you wanted to get a pat on the back for being good in a specific area. Yeah. So it was not about fame or money. And I actually used the same example earlier today where I was talking about some of the self-reflection I've made. Right? So I'm an insecure specialist at the end of the day. For me, I find teaching really gives me something. It's not about the bank account, it's about having somebody recognizing or taking value from what you said. So that really gives me a lot of value. So it's not about how big the car is in the driveway or the length of my vacations or anything. It's about, have I given something? What ripples am I making?
Yeah.
There's this old movie with Danny DeVito called Other People's Money. One of the things he brings up saying, the one who has the biggest bank account when he dies wins. But
who cares?
Yeah, who cares? It's like that. That's not it. Who has made the most positive impact on the world?
Yeah, right? And it's like your role is part of other people's world. So it's like if you're doing a difference in your world, you can do a difference from others, and hopefully, other people will see it and try to do it as well.
Yeah.
I struggle with meritocracy a lot, as you know. And I was trying to climb the ladder, and I'm sure if I wanted to, I could have gone more deeper on the CMO stuff, but I just realized it doesn't bring any type of meaning to my life. No. Like, it's great to have the title, but the title doesn't mean anything if you're not happy and you're... So I relate completely. I'm still insecure, but I'm happy to be insecure, but to see that some things that I do can bring other people, some sort of, I guess, light or, some sort of help in their lives.
Well, a thought for you, talking about ladders, do you need to stop climbing new ladders?
New ladders, exactly.
Yeah, there's no more new ladders, Juliana.
No more for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I made that probably commitment in my keynote, but it took me some time, Steen. Like, it really took me some time. But now I have no more interest. Like, I really like product analytics, and I think I'm good. I'm really gonna do this. I don't know how and when, but I'm here, and I just feel comfortable in this. Just I think about the mindset switch. And it's gonna be interesting, but no more hills. I'm just gonna sit in this one right now. Not sure, but I was telling people on the Measure Slack the other day. I just got very emotional. I was like, this is the healthiest community I've been in, and it is the healthiest community. Everyone is very honest, and there's not like that backstabbing thing that happens, in other industries. Steen, thank you so much for meeting me here next to the Brătianu house in Romania, Bucharest. Tell people how they can find you and follow you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a lazy guy in the sense that I'm doing everything on LinkedIn. so that's where I try to share my stuff.
You haven't posted your weekly article in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've been watching you. Steen writes great articles on LinkedIn. You should go back like last 4 or 5 months. You'll find a lot of great stuff there. You'll find the links in the comments, and thank you for watching, and thank you, Alexandra, for filming this.
Yeah, thank you.